So the 2019 Trek Remedy 9.7. So this is the carbon model. It's got my old rear shock, which is 2019 Fox Float X2. All the bells and whistles on there. Factory model. It's got a 1-up dropper, which is pretty cool. So a couple of things to talk about on this bike. The 1-up, we got the Lyric Debonair, which is cool. The 1-up pedals. So these things are the metal version, so not the plastic version. I've ridden on the plastic version. These are actually a little bit bigger than the plastic version. They feel like a little bit bigger platform. I'm not too sure objectively if that's correct, but they definitely feel a little bigger. Quite thin, which is cool. No good on a crank trailer. It's got the big inboard bearing there, which is probably not ideal for the crank trailers, but any other situation it's fine. GX derailleur, NX shifter, guide brakes, which are actually really, really strong. So I think my codes, I've been using CT18 forever to wash my bikes, and I'm actually starting to think that that contaminates the brake pads a little bit, because getting on this, these guides have got more power than what my codes have got, so, or as much, easily. So I believe it's because the CT18 after a while contaminates the pads. So the pads are I've still got the original pads in on my bike, so they're quite old, but still all the same. These things are so strong, really, really strong, really impressive. 170 cranks, which are also off my Patrol. So they set up reasonably well. They come with 175s. Comes with the standard deluxe rear shock, which I didn't test in this test. I didn't try it out, but I know it feels good. The standard deluxe is a good shock. A little bit limited on the long runs, obviously. A little bit less robust than, say, this or the Super Deluxe. But this thing was good. When I ran this on my old Remedy, I had to run it full of spacers to get it to the sag point that I wanted, which is 18mm of sag, and to have it not blowing through the travel. On this bike, I'm running it with 2 less spacers, so it was full of spacers, which I think it's 5. I think the max you can put in this shock for this configuration is 5 spaces. It might be 4, but I've taken 2 out, so we're 2 less now, and it feels still really, really supportive, but much, much more supple. So when it was fully loaded, there was just no compliance on the back. It felt really fast at Moriata. Felt quite good and really fun to ride, actually. It's got a long stem. It's got a 60mm stem on it, which it doesn't come out factory. It comes out factory with a 50, so no stress there. Comes out factory with a 50 and 780 bars. This has got a 60 and 800 bars, which I changed over, which we'll talk about that in a minute. But the rear shock and the rear suspension layout in general, compared to the 2018, I believe that this is a more progressive setup. So down towards the end of the stroke, there's a lot more support. Even the mid, I think there's more support in the mid. So whatever they've done, changing from a full floater to this mounted, the fixed mount setup at the bottom, whether they've slightly tweaked some other stuff there as well, it's definitely made it better. It's definitely made more tunable in the rear, carries good speed. This is probably 2 kilos lighter than my bike. Did the same climb that I do regularly on my bike, from Waterfall Gully Road, up Pioneer Women's, up the Bullet Track past the golf course, the Mount Osmond golf course, and then up to Crafers, and then left into the start of the mountain bike trail. So I'll do Little Ripper or Ewok, boost out of Ewok, do the Bullet Track along the side of the fire road, and then do nice and narrow, and then I've got I've got 4 weeks, Brown Sally, Waterfall DH, or Twisted Gum to choose from, which I generally choose Twisted Gum when I'm testing bikes, because it's a good test, and yet your bikes have to be nimble through there. So climbing, being a couple of kilos lighter, I thought maybe it'd be a bit more efficient, but exactly the same. I was running my front wheel and front tyre on it off of my bike, because this is a 2.3 DHF, which is good, Max Terra. It's really good, but I really wanted the 2.5 max grip. It's what I'm used to, and I feel like I can really put a bike through its paces if I've got the best front tyre that I know of on the front there. So I swapped that out. It felt killer. Straight away, I took this bar off, so I rode with it, with the long bar and stem, and it's kind of feel like a little bit of damage control. So I shortened that. I went my 40mm stem, which to me is probably too short for this bike, even though it's a 19.5. My old Remedy was 18.5. With the shorter stem, they almost felt the same size. So it's got a 455 reach, as far as I know. 74.2 degree effective seat angle, which is I think it's like a 68 degree seat angle itself, but it felt good on climbing. It felt quite good climbing. So like I said, it wasn't overly efficient. When you lock it out, this shock is really good under lockout for sprinting. The fork, full compression is really good for sprinting. I kind of put them through their paces on one of the climbs and locked it out to see how it feels, but no need to lock it out really. The dropper was really, really smooth. There's no rattle, there's no play. It's a little bit scratchy. It feels a little bit scratchy, but I pulled the collar off, gave it some grease. Didn't make much difference. It's smooth, but just feels a bit scratchy. The lever is still the Bontrager lever, which is pretty cool. Doesn't take a lot of effort. I do actually prefer the one up dropper lever, so something to think about. The back wheel felt strong. It's not very straight, it's not very true, but it felt strong. All the spokes are pretty good. The spoke tension's good across the whole thing. Handling. So once I got the stem right, it became a super playful bike. Pretty much exactly like my old Remedy felt. So the geometry is quite similar, just that rear suspension layout is a little bit different. I really like that. I really like that I could make a little bit of adjustment on that rear shock, and all of a sudden I've got a wicked platform out the back there. I feel like I could have gone a little slower on the high-speed rebound, which I spoke about in my last run. I think, not too sure if I've uploaded that yet. My last run on it, I felt like I could slow down the high-speed rebound a little bit, just to calm that back end down a little bit more. So what I'd do there is, if the high-speed rebound's too fast, it's kind of real choppy, and there's not much you can do with the low-speed rebound to dial that out. So you slow down that high-speed rebound to almost closed on this shot. So 2 or 3 clicks out would have been perfect, I think. I think I'm running at about between 5 and 8 clicks out at the moment from fully closed. But the 2 or 3 clicks out would really make that calmer, and I could bring the low-speed compression low-speed rebound a little faster, and keep it supple at the back without being aggressive. So a little bit of fine-tuning there would have helped. But overall, on Little Ripper or Ewok, that's the loosest trail that I know of on that side of the hill. When I take a bike in there, it really shows whether that back end's working well, whether there's grip and whatnot, and whether the forks are working well, to be honest. And the first runs I did down there, it was horrible. You can see on the helmet cam, I was really struggling for confidence and for grip. The bike was kind of dancing a bit, and the back end was really dancing me around. So had the sag right and everything like that, but just too progressive in the shock, and maybe a little bit fast on that high-speed rebound. But mostly it was too progressive in the rear shock. So I tuned that out, and you can see in the second run that I did on that, the video I've just uploaded recently, run 1 versus run 2 down the same track, I changed the shock configuration and the bar and stem. So I had my 750s and the 40mm stem, and it was so much better. It became the bike that I thought this Remedy was, and it was killer. It was a lot of fun, really playful, easy to change from here to here. Even on the loose stuff, I could pick my line and go, nah, I want to be over there now, and just put it there. It was killer. Speaking on carbon frames, I know there's a big push for carbon frames, and everybody seems to think that the performance benefit is, you go to carbon, you get a stiffer bike. It's more, it's faster to pump. You lose less energy through the framework. So I believe if you build a strong alloy bike, the Giant Rain was really good. The newer Giant Rain, especially 18 onwards. My Patrol is the stiffest bike I've ever ridden. It's as stiff as this for sure, easily. But I think alloy bikes take a hit a little bit better. I think I was explaining it to my friend before, it's like when you're young and you're playing cricket and you catch, if you're not wearing gloves, you catch the ball on the end of the bat and it goes ding and it rings through your hands. The difference between carbon and alloy to me on frames is that ding you get through the carbon, you really feel everything that happens through the bike, whereas on alloy it's deadened. It's almost like you've had that ding but you're wearing cricket gloves, so it really gets deadened. So I really honestly do prefer an alloy bike. I know they're cheaper, more affordable, more environmentally friendly as well. But overall, to me, alloy for the feel, 100%. If it's real kind of lightweight alloy, maybe it's going to suffer from stiffness. The Canyon Torque that I rode recently, that wasn't very stiff, but the characteristics of that bike actually felt like it helped the corner a little bit. So that was impressive. Stiff isn't always better. This thing is extremely stiff. It feels quite stiff. When you're pumping and kind of offline a little bit or on an angle going through some rough stuff, it holds the line really well once that suspension's dialed in properly. It didn't feel overly stiff, but I don't see a performance benefit being carbon versus alloy. So if I was to buy a bike or give some advice on buying a new bike, and you're asking, should I go the carbon one with the lesser spec and build up on it on the, as I progress as a rider or as the money comes in, whatever. My move would always be get the alloy bike with the best spec you can get, because at the end of the day, we ride for the feeling you get from riding. And the feeling you get from riding hugely comes from the componentry. So better suspension, better drivetrain. So if you're going to go a carbon with budget bob drivetrain and budget bob suspension, I don't think you're going to get as much pleasure out of riding the bike, even though you've got a flashy carbon frame. So don't be scared to go alloy with a top spec or a higher spec. Suspension especially, and drivetrain, and it might save you a little bit of money to swap over. Might save you a little bit of money to swap over to your shorter cranks, your different cockpit if you want to set that up. Bits and pieces that you want to customize to the bike. So overall, this thing absolutely shreds. On the high speed stuff, it was really, really good. More or less the same as my old Remedy, but it's a 19.5, which gave me even more confidence. So it made it feel more capable, more roomy, more fun, still wheelies, bunny hops, everything felt exactly the same as the old Remedy, but I've got room to move, and I reckon I could probably corner better on this, even though it's a little bigger. I mentioned in a comment, someone asked me a question, would I go, we're just going back and forth, and I said if I was to go the Slash, so a 29er, I'd go the 18.5, because I demoed the 19.5 in the 29er, in the Slash. And the 29-inch wheels, after riding Andy Clark's bike, which is the medium Hightower LT, that's quite a small bike. And that 29er felt really, really nimble and really, really fun. And it almost eliminated the weaknesses that I see in a 29er, which is the back wheel being a little harder to control in corners and through steep stuff and rough stuff. So if I was to go a 29er, I'd go the 18.5, but if I was going to go the 27, I'd go 19.5. So definitely something to think about there. So yeah, that's something to think about. If you're kind of in the market for a 20, or you're upping an R and 29er versus 27, demo the bikes that you're looking for, obviously. Little bit of babble. Back to the bike. Shreds hard. It's exactly like the old Remedy with a better platform at the back, and I think getting rid of the floater has made it overall stiffer as well. So it's not just the carbon frame that's making it a stiffer bike. The fixed lower linkage there definitely makes it feel a little bit more robust. So happy with that. The Debonair forks, definitely good, but they're not on the same level as my Fox 36s. My 36s are the Performance Elite, so they're the best that they make. But also, I just don't feel like these they're just not quite as supple. Now, they are super supple, they do feel excellent, and I did give these a service to get them tickety-boo. But I think they could still be improved with a Luftkäppe. The Luftkäppe will bring it to that standard of what my Fox 36 feels like, I believe. Because these don't feel quite as supple and supportive as my old Lyrics with the Luftkäppe in it. So more or less the same setup, but it's Debonair versus Luftkäppe. So Debonair's killer, definitely a good upgrade if you've got the old spring, but not quite as good as the 36 setup that I've got so far, which comes down to the damper as well, I think. But yeah, wicked fork, wicked bike. I do like this one-up dropper. It's quiet, it's efficient, it works perfectly. Not sure about longevity. People think they're pretty good. This did actually come with an NX shifter, which was a bit weird. Feels a little bit springy and Doesn't feel as crisp as the GX, and definitely doesn't feel as crisp as the EXO, or the EXO-1. Yeah. Other than that, I had a lot of fun on this bike. I only had it for a week, but it was a good week. You know, fitting it in between some other stuff that I've been doing this week as well, and I got a pretty solid ride on it, and yeah, it's a ripper. So Brian, for sure, get rid of this 60mm stem. You're not doing yourself any favours with that stem. Maybe narrow the bars a bit. I think 800's a bit overkill, but that's a learning process as well. Outside of that, crisp as a biscuit. Thank you so much for letting me ride it. Thanks for lending it to me, and yeah, she's still in one piece, so it's good news all around.